Hello and welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint. I'm Niraj Shah. Let's get started with the coronavirus updates as we usually do almost every single day. So the cases have topped all-time highs, obviously. So 7,84,000 on the last count that is there on Bloomberg. About 37,600 people dead. But well, there are some good news today. We've been focusing on the bad news. I would want to talk about the positives that we take out of this as well. About 1,65,000 recovered cases. Yes, China is now number 4. I'm not saying that's good news. I'm just saying China is now number 4 on the list of countries which have got the highest number of cases, with US, Italy, and Spain now ahead of China in terms of total number of cases detected. But Italy has reported the lowest single day cases in the last 2 weeks. Should that be a positive? Well, difficult to say, but let's take good news when it comes, right? WHO is saying that Europe is expected to start stabilizing soon. And again, this may very well change, but for now, I would want to take it at face value. And let's hope that happens. Now, mind you, the headline yesterday was that India, when it comes to India, the number of cases have spiked, showed the largest spike. But keep in mind that base is very, very low. May hopefully, if it stays that way, it should be positive for us. But some other good news very quickly, and then we move on to what trade is showing. So Johnson & Johnson has said that it's identified a lead vaccine candidate for coronavirus, and the human testing on the potential vaccine will begin in September. That stock went up big time in trade yesterday. By the way, the US markets didn't do all that badly as well. And frankly, if you look at the last 4 or 5 days, except for one day on Friday, the US markets actually have had a fairly decent session. So 4 out of the last 5 days, the US markets have ended in the green, which is not bad news at all. And frankly, the Dow Futures, the last time I checked early morning, were also pointing towards a bit of green. So green day yesterday, green start for the Dow Futures. Maybe that should augur well. Asia and SGX, well, Asia has some other positive news as well. The Chinese PMI, much higher, I think over 52. The expectations were about 44. So the manufacturing PMI from China data has been positive. So that should be viewed positively as well. So watch out for Asia, watch out for SGX. I'm tempted to say that the SGX may not necessarily be a lead indicator, as was the case yesterday, because we ended 5% lower. The SGX obviously didn't give any signs of that. But let's wait and watch how we start. One more positive, crude from an India perspective, crude is below $20 a barrel. Yes, overall it's a negative because there's a demand shock right now, and that's why crude is coming off, which shouldn't augur well for global demand too. But hey, crude has come off, and that should augur well for the Indian net bill. Now the trade setup, and frankly, if you just look at what's happened in yesterday's session as well, the markets went down. A lot of stocks like Bajaj Finance, HDFC, and the financials corrected on not necessarily the highest of volumes. Frankly, since the lockdown has been done, and there's a very interesting chart which shows how volumes in Indian markets have completely tapered off since this lockdown announcement. So markets are coming off, blue chips are getting sold, albeit on very thin volumes. I would reckon passive market selling. FI flows though, and remember, I won't say I have a black tongue, but I was speaking about this last week, that don't read too much into this tapering down of FI outflows and a small positive number in Friday. FI selling has resumed a large sell number in trade yesterday as well. So for now, the trend seems to be on the flow outside, away from India. But having said that, what is it that you should watch out for in the session today? I think 2 or 3 key news. One, very, very important. The RBI has opened up key government bonds to full foreign investment. This is a big step. This is the first step towards India getting a place in the foreign bond indices, which should probably get in some passive flows into India as well when this happens. This is not something that will have immediate repercussions, but I urge all of you to log into our website, BloombergQuint.com, and try and read this story that Ira has put up. It'll give you an idea of how important the step is. Frankly, the Reserve Bank of India has been bringing out heavy artillery in the last few days. The steps that they did, the rate cuts that they did last week, and this now should augur very positively for bond markets in the long term. I think it's a sentiment booster as well. Let's see what happens to yields early morning today. Some stocks that you should be monitoring today. I think all eyes would be on the key heavyweights, the likes of Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank. They came off very, very rapidly in trade yesterday. Let's see what happens to them in the session today. It will be really interesting to see. Remember, these are the levels from where Bajaj Finance has bounced back in the last 7 or 8 days. So let's wait and watch if it does that. I would watch out for IndusInd Bank. They did a call and they came out with notes which are not too positive. They've lost deposit base up to about 10 to 11%. And that is huge for any bank. and especially in these times for a stock like IndusInd Bank as well, brings into question mark the strength of the liability franchise as well. I wouldn't be surprised if the stock fundamentally corrects a bit in the session today, even after the correction that it has seen. So let's wait and watch what happens to this one. Would watch out for Jubilant Life Sciences as well. Some employees at the Mysore unit have been found COVID-19 positive, and that should impact the manufacturing base out there. May not be the most positive news for Jubilant as well. Last but not the least, I just want to leave you with what JP Morgan is saying. And like I said, today's a day wherein I'm looking at the positives. So JP Morgan says, I mean, it's a very long one. I'll just break it down in a nutshell. They're saying that most risky markets have probably made their lows for this recession, except perhaps oil and some emerging market currencies beset by debt sustainability issues. So we are an oil importing nation, and therefore that should be positive. But they are largely saying that maybe risk assets have found a bit of a trough after all the actions that the central banks have done. Again, a story that is there on BloombergQuint.com. Urge you to read about this. But viewers, thanks for tuning in. Keep in mind, the move by the Reserve Bank of India late last evening post-market hours is arguably the most important one from an Indian markets and Indian finance watchers perspective. Thanks so much for tuning in today.
According to a recent report, women today contribute